Good morning, it's today again. Welcome back to Joseph's Reserves. I'm Joseph and I store 20% of my income in the form of rare coins and precious metals. Something strange is happening in the silver market right now, and if you've been stacking for any amount of time, this might completely flip how you think of 90% silver. Because over the past few weeks, I've been seeing something, and honestly, I never thought I'd see it. Stackers are trading out generic silver rounds into 90% silver. Let that sink in. A year ago, that would have sounded insane, and 2 years ago, just completely impossible. But right now, it's happening. And the real question is 90% dead, or is this actually an opportunity of a lifetime? Congratulations to Training with Lions for getting the first comment on my video yesterday. Training with Lions is actually my first member of the channel, so thank you so much for your support. Now, I want to be pretty clear about something. This isn't just one or two people doing something random. I've been hearing it more and more and seeing it more and more. Stackers are walking into shops and coin shows and they're swapping generic rounds and generic bars for pre-1965 90% silver coins. And if you've been in this space for a while, you know how backwards that sounds. Because for years, the flow was the exact opposite. People were dumping 90% silver, avoiding it, and refusing to buy it. Why? Because there were premiums. Let's rewind a little bit. Back in 2022, 2023, and even early 2024, if you wanted 90% silver, you were paying over spot. 5%, 7%, sometimes even 10% over spot, and in extreme cases, even higher. At one point during the banking panic, premiums on 90% exploded to over 30%. And here's what's crazy. That kind of premium was comparable to something like an American silver eagle. Think about that. A government issued silver coin with global recognition had similar premiums to worn out dimes and quarters. That's how hot 90% silver was. Now the entire situation has flipped. Premiums on 90% silver have collapsed. And in many cases, now you can buy it at spot or even under spot, sometimes significantly under spot. And that changes everything. Because now stackers are asking a very different question. Why am I holding generics when I can get real coins for the same price or even cheaper? And that's the shift. Before we go any deeper, let's break down this for everyone who's newer to stacking. What exactly is 90% silver? 90% refers to US coins that were minted before 1965. That includes the dimes, quarters, and half dollars. They were all made of 90% silver and 10% copper. These are often called junk silver or constitutional silver, and the term junk doesn't mean that they're worthless, it just means that there's no significant collectible value over the silver value. They're mostly valued for their silver content. These coins circulated as money for decades. They were used in everyday transactions, and over time they did get worn, which brings us to the most important part, the math. When you buy 90% silver, you don't just measure it coin by coin, you measure it by face value. And here's how it works. $1 in face value of 90% silver is 0.715 troy ounces. So 10 dimes or 4 quarters or 2 half dollars, the silver content is equal. But here's an even easier conversion. $1.40 in face value is equal to 1 troy ounce of silver. Then that's the number you need to remember. If someone says they're able to buy 90% silver at 40 times face, that means that $20 in face value would cost them $800. And that would contain 14.3 ounces of silver. This system is how the entire 90% market operates. So if 90% silver is so useful, why did people abandon it? Well, it's simple. The premium. When premiums got too high, stackers started thinking, why am I paying more for worn out coins when I can buy clean, uniform rounds? And that led to a massive shift toward generic rounds, 1 ounce bars, and low premium bullion. The logic was there. It made sense. But here's the thing about the market. They don't stay in one condition forever. Now we're seeing the opposite problem. 90% silver has been oversold, ignored, and discounted. And now it's being repriced. Not upward, downward. And when something drops below its intrinsic value, smart money starts paying attention. Because now the question becomes, is this actually undervalued? Here are some things that get really interesting about 90% silver. Because unlike generic rounds, 90% silver has a fixed supply. It's not being minted anymore, ever. All of it comes from coins that were minted before 1965, and that's it. But here's the part that most people don't think about. A massive portion of that supply is gone. It was melted. During the 1970s and 1980s, when silver ran up to $50, people melted these coins. Not a little, a lot of them. Entire bags were sent to refiners, thousands of bags, millions of coins gone. Then it happened again in 2011. More melting, more supply destroyed, and once it's melted, it's not coming back as coins, it comes back as generic silver. This is the paradox. There's a limited supply, it has historical significance, and it's a recognizable form, and yet it's trading at or below spot. That usually doesn't last. Markets don't ignore value forever. If something is mispriced, it gets corrected quickly. So now you've got stackers looking at this thinking it's the same silver content, a lower price, more historical recognition, and better for fractional usability. And they're making the decision, swapping generics for 90% silver, especially when the trade is even or even favorable. And that's what we've been seeing. Not everyone, but enough people that it's noticeable. Here's another big factor. 90% silver is naturally fractional. Dimes, quarters, half dollars. In a real world scenario, that matters. You don't need to break out a whole ounce. You can transact in smaller increments. And when premiums are gone, that advantage becomes free. Take a look at what the similar fractional coins would look like premium-wise if we were talking about 1/10 ounce silver, a quarter ounce silver, or half ounce silver. Those premiums are extremely high, and the buyback is just like any other generic silver. The spread on it is very similar to 90%, but with 90% you get a lot more silver, way more volume because of how low it's selling for. So let's answer the question. Is 90% silver dead? No. What's dead is the old premium structure. What's dead is the assumption that it will always trade at a premium. Right now, it's in a reset phase, and resets create opportunities. If silver moves higher, history tells us something important. 90% tends to sell out first, spike in premium fastest, and become hardest to find. We saw it in 2008, 2011, 2020, and 2023. Every time physical demand surged, 90% disappeared. And here's where we are today. Premiums are low, supply is finite, and interest is returning. Behavior is shifting. And that combination doesn't happen often. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not giving you any financial advice, but I will say this. When markets flip like this, it's worth paying attention because sometimes the best opportunities don't feel exciting. They sometimes feel a little bit wrong. So I want to hear from you. Are you buying 90% silver right now? Are you swapping out your generics? Or do you think this is a little bit of a trap? For me, I'm not swapping out generics. I'm not selling silver to go into a different silver. However, I am starting to consider buying a lot more. And I'm definitely using this opportunity to fill out my collection books and hopefully complete my date runs. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I just made my own line of coffee. Joseph's Reserves It's Today Again coffee. Most mornings aren't dramatic. They're quiet. You wake up, pour yourself a cup, and now you have a choice. Drift through the day or take hold of what's in front of you. That's really what this whole thing's about. Showing up, building good habits, staying disciplined in the small things. Whether that's stacking consistently, learning something new, or just being faithful with what you've been given. I put these words on every bag to remind myself first. Every morning is a gift. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, today. So take a breath, take a sip, and let's get to work. It's today again. You can now write me at Joseph's Reserves, 10160 Highway 242, Suite 800, number 401 in Conroe, Texas, zip code 77385. Make sure to include your information so I can write you back. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Go down into the comments for any questions or comments about this video and to get an idea of what others in the community think about this topic. If you know anyone that might like this video, please share it to them and subscribe if you haven't already. But most of all, thank you so much for watching. And just remember, every ounce adds up, so no matter how small, just keep stacking.